They can't erase me, Charlotte Bennett whispered as the lobby screens called her a criminal. The janitor caught her before she hit the marble floor. Careful, Daniel Brooks said quietly. Above them, the board was already celebrating her fall. By morning, one of them would be under federal investigation, and it wouldn't be her. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? Or received a call that changed everything overnight? And where are you watching from? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real emotional stories. Let's begin. Chicago looked clean when it snowed, like the city could hide its sins under a fresh white sheet. Daniel Brooks saw those sins every night. At 11:38 p.m. he pushed a yellow mop bucket across the marble lobby of Bennett Innovations, watching flakes slap the glass walls like impatient fingers. Outside, Michigan Avenue was a blur of headlights and wind. Inside, everything was too bright, too quiet, like a museum for people who didn't believe in leaving fingerprints. Above him, 40-some floors up, the last board meeting was still burning. Daniel didn't know the details. He never did. That was the point of being the night janitor, you cleaned the aftermath, not the cause. But tonight, the building felt wrong. Security had doubled. The receptionist had left crying. And the wall screens in the lobby kept replaying the same headline loop with the sound off. Charlotte Bennett under federal scrutiny, stock plummets, board calls emergency vote. Daniel's jaw tightened as he wiped a streak of melted snow from the floor. He'd lived long enough to recognize a familiar pattern, powerful people moving fast, before anyone could ask the right questions. A private elevator chimed. Charlotte Bennett stepped out like someone who'd forgotten how to breathe. She was smaller than the photos online, still elegant, still sharp, but her eyes were hollow in a way no camera ever captured. Her coat was buttoned up wrong. One earring was missing. And she walked like the ground might betray her if she trusted it. Daniel should have looked away. He'd learned that lesson years ago, after Sarah died and kindness started feeling expensive. But Charlotte's heel hit the slick marble. Her body tilted, fast, helpless, and Daniel moved without thinking. His hand caught her elbow, firm and steady, stopping her from crashing to the floor. For a second, she stiffened like she'd been touched by electricity. Then she pulled back, straightening. "I'm fine," she said, voice clipped, automatic. Daniel didn't argue. He just met her gaze, not as Charlotte Bennett, billionaire, headline, trophy, but as a woman standing in the wreckage of her own life. Outside, the snow thickened. Charlotte took 2 steps toward the glass doors, as if she could walk straight out of the story being written about her. The wind hit the glass like a warning. She paused, staring at her reflection layered over the news screens. Then her phone lit up. Her thumb swiped fast, too fast, and Daniel saw it, error messages stacked like tombstones. Account access restricted. Credit line unavailable. Transaction denied. Charlotte blinked once. Twice. Her face didn't crumble, her pride held the shape, but her hands trembled. Daniel heard himself speak before he could stop it. Headlines aren't always the truth. Charlotte's head snapped toward him. "You don't know anything about this." "I know what it looks like," Daniel said, rinsing his mop slowly, buying time. "People move quick when they're trying to bury something." Her lips pressed into a hard line. "I built this company from nothing." "Then they didn't destroy you," Daniel said. "They destroyed your access." That landed. He saw it, just a tiny shift, like the first crack in ice. Charlotte glanced toward the elevators again, like she expected security to appear and escort her out a second time. Her breath fogged faintly in the lobby's draft. "I have nowhere to go," she admitted, and the words sounded like they hurt her. Daniel's throat tightened. He thought of Lucas, 8 years old, sleeping in their tiny apartment on the south side, a science book open on the bed like a shield. He thought of the promises he'd made after Sarah's funeral: show up, stay steady, don't let the world turn you cold. You can sit, Daniel said, nodding at the minimalist bench near the security desk. Storm's not letting anyone move tonight. Charlotte hesitated, then sat. Not gracefully. Not like a billionaire. Like someone who'd just been pushed off a cliff and discovered the air didn't care how rich you were. Daniel pulled a folding chair from the closet and set it across from her, keeping a respectful distance. For a while, he worked in silence, wipe, rinse, repeat, while the screens kept flashing her face and calling her guilty without a trial. Then Charlotte spoke, quieter. They accused me of trading irregularities I didn't authorize. Daniel didn't look up, but he listened. Who benefits? Her eyes narrowed, the first real spark returning. My board. My CFO. People who wanted my seat. Names, Daniel said. She hesitated, then gave them like she was reading a list of knives. Monica Reed. Robert Caldwell. Stephen Hart. Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. Not fear, recognition. Because men like Caldwell didn't just take power. They erased witnesses. And Daniel Brooks, night janitor, invisible man, had just become the only person in the building treating Charlotte Bennett like she still mattered. Outside, snow buried the streets. Inside, Charlotte leaned forward slightly, voice low and urgent. I need to prove I was set up, she said. Before morning. Daniel looked at the locked doors, the empty lobby, the frozen city beyond the glass. Then he nodded once. Okay, he said. But we do it clean. Honest. And we do it with proof. Charlotte stared at him like she wasn't used to hearing conditions from people in uniforms. Daniel held her gaze anyway. Because if the world had taught him anything, it was this. When the powerful fall, the real story isn't the fall. It's who stays standing beside them in the snow. Daniel Brooks had cleaned this lobby 1,000 times, but tonight it felt like a crime scene that hadn't been declared yet. Charlotte sat rigid on the bench, watching the elevators as if any second they'd open and spit out a verdict. Her phone kept buzzing, messages she didn't answer, numbers she didn't recognize, notifications that looked more like locks than information. Daniel kept his voice calm on purpose. Panic spread fast in a glass building. Start from the first thing that felt off, he said. Not the accusation. Before that. Charlotte swallowed. This afternoon. The stock dipped hard for no reason. I called Monica Reed, my CFO. She said it was market noise. Daniel's eyes flicked to the lobby screens. Market noise didn't usually come with federal scrutiny by midnight. And Caldwell? Daniel asked, already picturing the board chairman's expensive smile. What did he do? He suggested I take a leave for the company's stability. Charlotte's mouth tightened. He used that exact word. Stability. Daniel nodded slowly. He'd heard that word in his own life too, right before landlords raised rent, right before bosses cut hours, right before someone told you it was nothing personal. He looked at the security desk. The night guard, Vince, was dozing behind the monitors, pretending not to see anything. Vince had always liked Daniel because Daniel didn't ask questions. Tonight, Daniel would. He stood, walked over, and tapped the counter gently. Vince jolted. Hey, Daniel said, friendly enough. Need a favor. Vince blinked, eyes darting toward Charlotte, then away. Daniel, you don't want trouble. I never do, Daniel replied. That's why I'm asking quietly. Vince hesitated. Daniel lowered his voice. Pull the building access logs for today. Executive floor. Board conference room. Who came in, who left, and when? Vince stared like Daniel had requested the nuclear codes. That's restricted. Daniel leaned closer, voice still soft. So is ruining a woman's life. But someone did it anyway. For a long moment, only the wind outside answered. Then Vince exhaled and rubbed his face. 5 minutes. I'm not printing anything. I'll show you. Daniel nodded. That's all we need. He returned to Charlotte. We're going to build a timeline. The truth always has a timeline. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. You do this often? Daniel gave a small, humorless smile. I used to be an engineer. Before everything. He didn't say Sarah's name. He didn't say the hospital bills, the foreclosure, the day he learned grief could evict you from your own plans. He just added, systems don't lie. People do. Charlotte stared at him like she just noticed there was a world outside boardrooms. Minutes later Vince waved Daniel over. On the monitor, a list scrolled, keycard pings, elevator overrides, door access stamps. Daniel's brain clicked into its old rhythm. Boardroom access, he said. Show me 6 p.m. onward. There it was. Robert Caldwell, 6:12 p.m. Stephen Hart, 6:18 p.m. Monica Reed, 6:24 p.m. Charlotte Bennett, 6:41 p.m. Daniel's eyes skimmed down. A line that didn't belong. Service access override, 7:03 p.m. Maint admin. Daniel's hand stilled. That's not a person, he murmured. Charlotte leaned in, frowning. That's our maintenance admin credential. It's supposed to be locked in IT. Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew how that worked. A master key no one admitted existed, until someone needed it. He pointed lower on the list. Maint admin, 7:09 p.m. Compliance office. Maint admin, 7:11 p.m. Trading ops. Maint admin, 7:14 p.m. Server room B. Charlotte's face went pale. Trading ops is where approvals are logged. Daniel looked at the timestamps again. Someone moved through the places that could create a paper trail, and then rewrote it. Charlotte whispered, Stephen Hart is compliance chief. He'd know exactly how to frame me. Daniel didn't like how neat it was. Too clean. Too choreographed. He turned back to Vince. Can you pull camera feeds for those times? Vince swallowed. Cameras on executive floors go to. I know, Daniel cut in gently. They go to the same people who just staged a coup. Charlotte stood, suddenly restless. So what do we do? We can't break into our own building. Daniel's gaze drifted to the service corridor behind the lobby, where the cleaning supplies were kept, where the cameras were old, where the blind spot still existed because no one important ever walked there. He picked up his key ring. We don't break in, he said. We use the parts of this place they forgot mattered. Charlotte stared. You're going to help me, like this? Daniel thought of Lucas again, of teaching his son that being honest wasn't just about telling the truth, it was about standing beside it. Yes, Daniel said. But we're doing it the right way. We find evidence that can survive daylight. Outside, the storm kept swallowing the city. Inside, Daniel Brooks, janitor, widower, father, led a billionaire toward a back hallway that smelled like lemon cleaner and forgotten work. And somewhere above them, the people who stole an empire were still awake. Making sure no one ever proved how they did it. The service corridor hummed with old fluorescent lights that flickered like tired eyes. Daniel Brooks walked ahead, keys jangling softly at his side. Charlotte followed, her heels quieter now, traded for the flat emergency shoes Vince had pulled from Lost and Found. For the first time in years, she wasn't leading. She was following. And Daniel could feel how unnatural that was for her. They don't monitor this hallway? Charlotte whispered. They do, Daniel said. But not in real time. Executive security watches what they think matters. He stopped in front of a steel door marked Server B, authorized personnel only. Charlotte's breath hitched. That's where the trading backups mirror before compliance signs off. Daniel glanced at her. You designed it? I approved the architecture. Then tell me what they'd overlook. She stepped closer, eyes scanning the access panel. The mirrored logs. They focus on the main ledger. But the system creates shadow logs for redundancy. They're not easy to access unless you know the pathway. Daniel's lips twitched faintly. Good. Because I know where the pathway physically runs. He unlocked the maintenance panel beside the server room, an unremarkable gray box most executives had walked past 1,000 times without seeing. Inside, fiber junctions, conduit lines, and a secondary port for manual diagnostics. Charlotte stared at him. You really were an engineer. Still am, Daniel said quietly. Just with a mop. He plugged in an old tablet he kept for system diagnostics. The screen flickered alive. Talk me through it, he said. Charlotte leaned in. Her earlier shock had burned away, replaced by something sharper, focus. The shadow logs timestamp every override, she said. If they used the main admin credential, the system would log the physical access separately from the financial entry. Daniel navigated through the directory layers. The interface was outdated but functional. Lines of code scrolled like falling snow. There. Admin_override, 1903, user, S. Hart temp. Charlotte froze. That's Stephen Hart. Daniel nodded slowly. Temporary credential assignment. Charlotte's voice tightened. Compliance chiefs don't assign themselves temp credentials without board authorization. Daniel opened another file. And this? Bulk transfer, 1912, initiated from Terminal C, approved by M. Reed. Charlotte's jaw clenched. Monica. Daniel leaned back slightly. So Hart accessed the system under a maintenance override. Reed approved the trades. Caldwell calls emergency vote. All before midnight. Charlotte's breathing deepened, not panic now, but anger. They tanked the stock intentionally, she said. Then froze my accounts to keep me from defending myself. Daniel saved copies to encrypted storage. We'll need someone who can publish this without being bought. Charlotte's mind clicked. Emily Harper. Daniel looked up. The investigative journalist. She's been after Caldwell for years. If we give her documented proof, she won't bury it. A sudden noise echoed from the main hallway, footsteps. Daniel killed the tablet screen instantly. Voices drifted closer. Make sure no one's in the building except staff. Caldwell wants confirmation. Charlotte's eyes widened. Daniel motioned silently toward the storage alcove. They slipped inside, the door barely closing before two security officers walked past. Charlotte's heart pounded loud enough she was sure they could hear it. Daniel stood steady beside her, close enough she could feel the calm radiating from him, not confidence in victory, but confidence in doing what was right. After the footsteps faded, Charlotte whispered, "Why are you risking this?" Daniel stared ahead, voice low. Because I know what it's like when powerful people rewrite your story. When my wife got sick, insurance said we'd misfiled paperwork. Said it was our error. They buried us in forms until we couldn't breathe. No one looked twice. Charlotte's anger softened into something else. You lost everything. Almost, Daniel said. I still had Lucas. That's foundation. Everything else is structure. Charlotte absorbed that in silence. They stepped back into the corridor. Daniel finished extracting the logs. As they returned toward the lobby, Charlotte's phone buzzed again. This time, she answered. A cold male voice filtered through. Charlotte. I trust you've left the building. Robert Caldwell. Daniel watched her shoulders straighten. I'm still here, she replied evenly. A pause. That would be unwise. Unwise for whom? Charlotte asked. Another pause, longer this time. Be careful, Caldwell said softly. Careers aren't the only things that collapse in storms. The line went dead. Daniel met Charlotte's gaze. That wasn't a warning, he said. It was a threat, she finished. Outside, snow continued to erase footprints. Inside, Daniel copied the final file and encrypted it under a simple name. Foundation. He handed the tablet to Charlotte. You ready to expose them? Charlotte looked toward the lobby screen, still declaring her guilty. For the first time since midnight, she didn't look broken. She looked resolved. Yes, she said. But not to get my empire back. Daniel tilted his head. To build something they can't corrupt. And somewhere above them, in heated offices overlooking a frozen city, the people who engineered the collapse had no idea. That the janitor they never noticed had just preserved the one thing they couldn't control. Proof. By 3:17 a.m., the storm had slowed, but the city hadn't. Daniel and Charlotte sat at a small security desk, the encrypted files open between them. Charlotte's hands were steady now. Not because she felt safe, but because she had direction. She dialed one number. Emily Harper answered on the third ring. I was wondering when you'd call, the journalist said, voice alert despite the hour. Charlotte didn't waste time. I have proof. Access logs. Shadow trades. Temporary credentials tied to Stephen Hart. Approval chain from Monica Reed. Silence. Then, send it. Daniel transferred the encrypted file. Emily's keyboard clattered faintly through the phone. Seconds stretched. Then Emily exhaled sharply. This isn't circumstantial. This is structural. Charlotte closed her eyes briefly. They tried to bury me before sunrise, she said. Emily's tone shifted. They didn't expect you to still be standing. Daniel leaned closer to the phone. They're monitoring the narrative. If this breaks too soft, they'll spin it. Emily gave a short laugh. I don't publish soft. The call ended. For a moment, the lobby returned to silence. The screen still ran the same headline loop, but something felt different, like the air had changed pressure. Charlotte looked at Daniel. What happens when this goes live? They panic, Daniel said. Then they look for someone to blame. Her eyes flickered. You. Daniel shrugged lightly. I'm already invisible. Charlotte studied him carefully. No. You're not. At 4:02 a.m., Emily Harper's article hit every major digital platform in Chicago. Internal coup at Bennett Innovations, evidence points to board-level manipulation. The lobby screens froze mid-scroll. Then refreshed. New headline. New tone. New target. Daniel watched as Caldwell's face replaced Charlotte's on the screen. Within minutes, phones across the building began ringing. Executives who had gone home confident were suddenly awake and scrambling. Charlotte's phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't threats. It was apologies. Board members distancing themselves. Investors requesting emergency clarification. Legal counsel suddenly reviewing prior assumptions. Daniel studied her expression. You can go back, he said quietly. They'll offer it. Charlotte didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked toward the glass doors and looked out at the snow-covered street. Dawn was creeping in pale blue along the horizon. Do you know what I realized tonight? She asked. Daniel waited. I built an empire that depended on loyalty to me. Not loyalty to integrity. That's why it was easy to weaponize. Daniel nodded slowly. Structures built on ego collapse fast. She looked back at him. You didn't hesitate to help me. Not because I was powerful. but because it was right. Daniel thought of Lucas again. That's the only currency that lasts. Her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID read, "Board emergency session." Charlotte stared at it. Daniel didn't speak. After 3 rings, she declined the call. Daniel's brow lifted slightly. "They want me back," she said. "Probably." She turned fully toward him now. "I don't want the tower anymore." The words hung in the air, unexpected, even to her. "I want something smaller. Clean. Transparent." Daniel studied her carefully. This wasn't anger talking. It wasn't pride. It was clarity. "What would that look like?" he asked. "A firm that audits corporations from the inside. Exposes fraud before it destroys employees. Protects companies from people like Caldwell." Daniel gave a faint smile. "You'd make enemies." "I already have," she replied. Her phone buzzed again. This time a message from Emily. "Feds opening investigation. Caldwell and Hart under review. Stay visible." Charlotte exhaled slowly. The storm outside had stopped. Snow clung to tree branches and streetlights, untouched and quiet. Daniel checked the time. "Lucas wakes up at 7, he said softly. Charlotte looked at him differently now, not as staff, not as savior, but as something more grounding. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Why didn't you try to climb back up? After losing everything?" Daniel considered the question. "Because I realized something," he said. "When Sarah died, I kept thinking I'd failed. That I should have earned more, built more, protected better. But Lucas didn't need a bigger house. He needed a present father." Charlotte absorbed that. "Empire isn't foundation," Daniel continued. "People are." Her gaze drifted to the screen one more time, Caldwell's image now under investigation graphics. For years, she had believed success meant scale. Tonight had stripped that illusion clean. "Daniel," she said carefully, "if I build this firm, I'll need someone who understands systems. And ethics." Daniel blinked. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you partnership." The word surprised both of them. Before Daniel could answer, security doors at the far end of the lobby slid open. Federal agents entered. The shift had begun. Charlotte didn't flinch. Daniel stood beside her, not in front, not behind. Beside. As agents approached the executive elevators upstairs, the lobby felt lighter. The truth hadn't just surfaced. It had survived. And as dawn broke over Chicago, Charlotte Bennett realized something she had never fully understood while at the top. Losing everything hadn't ended her story. It had finally made it honest. Spring arrived quietly in Chicago. The snow melted without apology, revealing sidewalks, cracks, and the stubborn green of grass that had survived underneath. Daniel Brooks noticed the change first through Lucas. "Dad, look!" Lucas shouted one afternoon, kneeling in the small park near their apartment. "It's coming back." A thin line of green pushed through the soil near the basketball court. Daniel smiled. "Yeah," he said. "It always does." Across the street stood a modest brick townhouse, recently purchased, unfurnished when it was listed, deliberately chosen. Charlotte Bennett had moved in 2 weeks earlier. Not to a penthouse overlooking the lake. Not to another glass tower. But here, where the sidewalks cracked, where neighbors knew each other's names, where no one cared about stock prices. Daniel still found it surreal. After the federal investigation exploded across headlines, Caldwell and Hart were indicted. Monica Reed negotiated a deal that left her reputation in ashes. Bennett Innovation survived, but not under Charlotte's control. The board had begged her to return. She declined publicly. Instead, she announced the formation of a new firm. Foundation Analytics, Corporate Integrity Consulting. Small. Transparent. Unapologetically direct. Daniel became the first official hire. Not as a janitor-turned-symbol. As lead systems engineer. The first time he stepped into their new office, a renovated second-floor space above a family-owned bookstore, he felt something different than he had in the marble lobby of Bennett Innovations. There were no gold plaques. No oversized portraits. Just desks, open windows, and a whiteboard filled with words Charlotte had written herself. Transparency. Accountability. Prevention. People. Daniel added one more beneath them. Foundation. Charlotte noticed. She didn't erase it. One evening, after a long day reviewing their first client, a mid-sized logistics company worried about internal fraud, Charlotte walked with Daniel to the park. Lucas ran ahead, chasing a soccer ball, laughing like the world had never been cruel. Charlotte watched him. "You were right," she said quietly. "About what?" "Empire isn't foundation." Daniel nodded. "I thought success meant being untouchable," she continued. "But I was alone at the top. No one warned me. No one questioned Caldwell openly. They protected access, not truth." Daniel looked toward Lucas. "Isolation makes people easier to remove." Charlotte exhaled slowly. "Now, if this fails, it fails honestly." Daniel smiled faintly. "It won't fail." She glanced at him. "You sound sure." "I've seen what happens when something's built on integrity instead of leverage," he said. "It grows slower. But it lasts." Lucas kicked the ball toward them. Charlotte instinctively stopped it with her foot. Lucas grinned up at her. "Ms. Charlotte, you're getting better." She laughed, an unguarded sound Daniel had never heard in the glass tower. "Give me a few months," she replied. As the sun dipped lower, painting the city gold instead of cold, Charlotte felt something unfamiliar. Not ambition. Not urgency. Peace. Her phone buzzed once, an alert about market fluctuations at Bennett Innovations. She silenced it without looking. That chapter was closed. Later that evening, Daniel stood at the townhouse doorway as Charlotte unlocked it. "Dinner tomorrow?" she asked casually. "Lucas can pick the menu." Daniel considered her, not the billionaire, not the scandal survivor. The woman who had fallen in a marble lobby and stood back up differently. "Yeah," he said. "We'd like that." Inside, the townhouse was simple but warm. Books stacked near the fireplace. A small desk near the window. No portraits of herself. No reminders of what she had been forced to defend. Just space. Space to build. A week later, Foundation Analytics released its first public advisory, helping prevent a quiet embezzlement scheme before it destroyed hundreds of jobs. No press conference. No spectacle. Just impact. On a mild Saturday afternoon, Charlotte sat on a park bench while Lucas played. Daniel sat beside her. Chicago buzzed around them, busy, imperfect, alive. "Do you ever miss it?" Daniel asked gently. "The scale. The spotlight." Charlotte thought for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "I don't miss being untouchable," she said. "I prefer being present." Daniel nodded. Lucas ran back toward them, breathless. "Dad! Miss Charlotte! Watch this." He kicked the ball hard, stumbled, and laughed at himself. Charlotte watched the child's joy and felt the truth settle fully in her chest. She had lost her empire. But she had found her foundation. And this time, no board could vote it away. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.